Hello mate, and welcome to another exciting pixel art video. This is going to be a furniture video. We've already done one bookcase. So today what I would like to do is build a chair. It's a fairly simple concept, but there's some things that we need to be aware of that we don't want to make mistakes with in order to make this look realistic. Now, the chair is a three-dimensional object, and as we talked about yesterday in the vase video, we have a height here of 2 meters. This is the height roughly of our character in this imaginary game that we're talking about. So we have to be careful that the chair isn't going to be as tall as that person, but we also have to consider that because the chair has depth as well as height, that it is going to appear to be higher in the actual icon or in the sprite, but when the character is actually stood next to it, the player will be able to see that it's a chair and it's a three-dimensional object, so it's not actually as tall as the player. So the average chair, let's say, is just over 1 meter high, so we need to make sure that the standing dimension of the back of the chair is no taller than 1 meter. So let's just block that in first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my rectangle fill tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. What I'm just going to do is I'm going to make it about that wide, let's just say, and that's going to be the back of our chair. Now I'm going to copy that and I'm going to drag it, and I'm actually going to put it probably about there. Okay, and that's going to be the back of my chair. Now I need to remove some of those pixels to make way for the legs. And remember, we're working in a two-dimensional plane at the moment. We haven't sort of drawn in the front, but I'm just going to make sure that I get my dimensions right. So that looks pretty much where we want to be in terms of the height of the back of the chair and then the height of the legs. So now what we need to do is we need to factor in that the height of the seat, or the depth of the seat of the chair, is usually about... It's quite similar to the length of the legs, generally speaking. So when I draw in, I'm going to pick a slightly lighter color to indicate that it's going to be, this surface is going to be horizontal. I'm going to grab this tool again, but we also have to take into consideration perspective. It's 45 degrees, but then again, so are the back of the chair and the legs. This is a 45 degrees top-down game, so my seat is going to do that. Okay. But to me, that looks too big. And the back of the chair also looks a bit too big on looking at it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shave off a row of pixels there. And now that to me looks a little bit better, a little bit more realistic. In fact, I could probably get away with another one of those. And now we're getting closer. So now all I need to do is sample this color, grab my pencil tool, and now I can draw in my legs, which are going to be pretty much the same length as that, maybe one longer. I think the same length is right, so we'll get rid of that and that, and now we can see that we've got a very basic chair. Now we can sort of add some decorations, some adornments, some highlights and stuff to make it look a little bit better. So again, I'm going to grab this layer here, because remember the chair is a three-dimensional object, so there should be a highlight on the top here. So I'm going to actually grab my pencil tool and I'm going to draw in the highlight like that, and now you can see it's starting to take more of a three-dimensional shape, or at least a perception of a three-dimensional shape. And because this is a chair, it's made out of wood, it's a little bit shiny, so I'm actually going to add a very subtle highlight just in the top here. And then I might go one higher there just to make that look a little bit shinier. And what I want to do is I actually want to go perhaps one higher, or better yet, let's grab this and we'll bring that down slightly, and we can drop that in there. Now it's nice, but it's not what I'm after. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to raise the corners up by one like that, just to give us a little bit of a three-dimensional feeling there. with these little two kind of, I don't know what you call them, chairs sometimes have. What I also want to do is I want to darken up the layer here, and I'm also going to draw a layer across like that to make it look like there's actually a supporting frame between the legs. But I want to go slightly darker. Perhaps not that dark. Let's go a little bit lighter there. Yeah, there we go. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do that like that, and then I'm going to come in a little bit darker again, and I'm going to do kind of like the same thing I did with the highlight, but now I'm doing it with a shadow, because I want the shadow to get a little bit deeper as it gets further away from the edges of the chair. And I'm also going to do a very similar thing just in here, just to kind of signify that where the seat meets the back of the chair, there's a little bit of a shadow just in there as well. Just kind of something like that. Maybe not quite as dark there, and just bring that out a little bit more. That looks a little bit better. Happy days. Okay, so I don't really want the seat of my chair to be completely flat. You could realistically get away with it, but what they usually have a little bit of a concave section in the middle, and in order to actually signify that, what I need to do is put a highlight around in a kind of a circle just in there, but it only has to be really, really subtle, like barely noticeable almost. So yeah, that's pretty subtle. So I'm actually going to just come around like that. And yeah, does that need to be slightly narrower? Yeah, and then I'm also going to grab a very slightly darker colour, and then I'm just going to fill in as if there were a shadow inside there. Something like that, just to make it look a little bit more interesting. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to think about maybe if there were slats in my chair. What I could do is every other row down, put another one of these highlights. It doesn't have to be identical to the one that we've already used. It can be very different. And then it looks like we've got a kind of a slatted chair like that. That looks pretty good. I'm quite happy with that. And then you can basically add whatever decorations you want. You can add some wood grain. You could add some imperfections to this piece of wood. So if you wanted to, you could just add kind of a little notch there. And then not forgetting the shadow. So we need to come right down on our opacity and our color down to about 50. And now we need to think about, there's going to be a contact shadow. So we need to come out a little bit from this, from the legs. And then underneath the chair, we also need that to be in shade. And if we think about the light coming from directly above the object, we could probably go all the way to there like that. And what I might do is go for a second layer, just kind of, oh, didn't mean to do that. Fill in these squares like that, just to make that shadow a little bit darker as it gets a bit deeper underneath the chair, like so. And that's pretty basic, but that's essentially all it really takes for a chair. And now you could, if you wanted to, you could move this down so that it lines up more centrally or more on the bottom of the icon, so that now you get more of a feeling of scale. So when the character stood next to it, you can see how tall this chair is. It shouldn't matter too much, but if you are going to use this as a sprite in a game, you might want all of your icons to be aligned to the same line, whether it be the center, the top, or the bottom. Just makes lining them up in the game a little bit easier. But generally speaking, if you're using something like Unity, the collision, rigid bodies, and so on will tend to line up with the actual pixels that have got information in them rather than the opaque ones anyway, so it shouldn't matter too much anyway. But there you go. Thanks very much for watching that, guys. I hope you found that useful. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. But until then, you take damn good care of yourselves, alright? Bye bye.